19(1)(c) talks about that the citizens of India shall have the freedom to form associations, assemblies, etc. And that is why these trade unions, labor unions. And Article 19(1)(g) gives a freedom of trade, profession, business all across India, with usual restrictions. Whereas, coming to directive principles of the state policy, few important articles into the Constitution of India which you must be aware of is Article 38, which says that the state shall promote social welfare. And minimize the discrimination of income. Article 41 says that state shall try to achieve social welfare, well-being of the people at large. 42 talks about development of human resources. 43 talks about living standard, living wages must be provided. And in the year 1976, 42nd Amendment of the Constitution of India brought Article 43A to the Constitution of India, which talked about the workers' participation into the management. All these laws, which I narrated, whether in the category of wages or in the category of welfare, gets the source of energy from these provisions of the Constitution of India. Because the Constitution of India, the primary document, which is like the source of energy, the powerhouse on the basis of which these statutes get illumination, they get the current to get illuminated, that Constitution of India mandates the state to bring these changes. Now, in the light of these statutes and these laws, please understand that where do you fit in? What is your role as HR manager? Because this word HR is also relatively new and a very glorified word. The word is human resource. Now, when you talk about human resource, there is a ministry dedicated to human resource, which we call HRD ministry, Human Resource Development. The study which you do, and if you do not have the actual understanding that what is your role into this commercial world, the economic world, because the entire world policies today are dominated by economy. Gone are those era when war used to happen on the basis of territories. Today wars happen on the basis of economy, commerce, business, trade. So you must understand you are a very vital cog in the wheel. Your role is very important, you must understand. So what is the scope? and how you must operate. I have identified 3 broader areas where you can look into as a professional of tomorrow, as an expert of HR. One is obviously the private corporate sector, where you can be an HR manager. The other is the government sector. And the third category is a private professional, like us, like we lawyers. We can be a corporate lawyer or a law officer in some corporate sector. We can be a government lawyer, or we can be into private practice like the one I am. Same is with you. Predominantly what is being talked about is that once you do your HR thing, corporate sector is waiting for you. But I'm taking you a little more areas where you can look beyond the corporate sector. Over and above the corporate sector, where you can be one of the HR managers, there's a huge area of your utility into the government sector. Because in every statute which I mentioned to you, whether it is a wages statute or it is a labor welfare statute, in every statute there is a government mechanism which execute the provisions of those statutes. And when you talk about the execution of the law of land, you require human resource. And who better than you, qualified in that particular area, to execute, to implement the provisions of law which have been framed for the welfare, or to ensure that the correct balance is being maintained between the corporate sector and the labor sector. There's another area in the government, other than the government legislation or execution, and that is called labor lawyers. And also labor judges. So there's a huge scope in judiciary for trained people into labor welfare. So the scope is not limited to the corporate world, that tomorrow, after completing your qualification, you are only to look towards the corporate sector as tomorrow's HR managers. There's a huge scope beyond corporate sector also. Now, third category which I mentioned, apart from the corporate sector and the government sector and judiciary, is the area of private practice. You can be an expert in the field of HR. And mind you, human resource is an area which requires a lot of understanding of labor as well as the corporate sector. So what is your job as a private practitioner? You can be a mediator between these two sectors, a privately practicing mediator, to resolve the dispute between the corporate and labor sector without going to the court. And this is a huge scope developing in the current era, where there are trained mediators who mediate and resolve the dispute, which is called alternative dispute redressal system. Then there are arbitrators. It is not necessary that the arbitrators must be from the field of law alone. It is not necessary that the arbitrators must be retired judges. As a professional, as an expert of your area, you can also be an arbitrator, or you can also opt for being in the panel of arbitrators. And mind you, there are national arbitrators, there are international arbitrators. And there's a huge area, there's a huge scope of alternative dispute redressal system where arbitrators are appointed. And you can be tomorrow's arbitrator or a mediator because you are trained into that particular qualification, that particular area. Your qualification suits. You understand, being an HR qualified, you understand these complexities. So your area of expertise can be of great utility to resolve these disputes. You can be a resource manager for employing people, where corporate sector can depend on you to employ people for them because you have that quality to test the qualification whether this person suits this job or not. So you can be a resource person. That is another huge area of vocation for you as a tomorrow's professional. Now, what you need to understand that the concept of joining as an HR manager into a corporate sector is the easiest of this line of options which I have given you. The easiest is applying for a job into a corporate sector and become an HR manager, being qualified into this professional course. Because whatever I told you other than this area of vocation is more challenging. You need to develop more expertise. And the toughest being a private professional. Because you have to upgrade yourself each day. You cannot sit on your laurels that I have achieved this qualification, I've got that degree, and now I can just work on day-to-day basis. Whatever the circumstances, what are the challenges, I'm just working on that. On the basis of my qualification. That can happen if you are part of a corporate conglomerate as one of the cog in the wheel. But when you opt for the government sector or into a judiciary, you can be a judge of tomorrow in the labor law, in the labor court, in the industrial court. There's one more called industrial tribunal, which is being central, which works for aviation sector, railways, central government sector. It all goes to industrial tribunal, the central government. Maharashtra has a set of judiciary called labor courts. The appeals of labor courts go to industrial court. So they require judges, they require expert lawyers, they require expert labor understanding mediators. They require labor law qualified arbitrators. There's a huge scope where you can opt for these areas for vocation with your qualification. It's good to know that you will have at least the clarity where you want to head to. So the only worry for me now is that I must not end up confusing you with bringing into light these more areas which you can explore as tomorrow's professionals, because there is a lot of areas which are waiting for your qualifications beyond corporate sector. And mind you, there are international areas now. For us, alternative dispute redressal system is becoming a very big in thing. And India is trying to bring that international status of arbitration in being recognized as India being one of the spots. Then one more area which I want to highlight for you is maritime, other than aviation. Now, maritime international shipping is a huge commercial area which requires a lot of HR experts, but with an understanding of international laws. And the international laws are also of two types. One is called the public international law, the other is called the private international law. You are concerned to the private international law, where you must have a little understanding of international maritime laws, where this international business, major business, takes place through shipping. And that's a huge area. And these areas, as on today, are demanding the experts, because the experts are not available. So as a tomorrow's qualified professional, you have a huge area open for you, where your extreme qualification into the HR can be utilized. And mind you, when I've given you all these sectors, other than corporate sectors like Indian judiciary, like government, like private professional, I have not even mentioned and whispered about the political sector. But mind you, there is a huge scope into that as well. In political setup of India, today they are realizing, they are waking up to the fact that we need qualified people. And if you pay attention, even the elections require a lot of management today. And if you have opened up to the idea, and if you are following the news, you will find that the people are being employed by political parties to manage their elections. And how to manage the vote pattern, the pockets of vote based on different sectors. And in India, we have a lot of classifications on the basis of religion, on the basis of caste, on the basis of sex, on the basis of color, on the basis of place of birth. And it requires huge amount of human resource management. So, may be possible that tomorrow your expertise is required by any of these political parties, and persons like me would be waiting for your appointment to get some work done through you. Because in India, a recommendation is a very important aspect. Contacts are very important. Any opportunity for your tomorrow's future should not be dimmed. And I'm confident and I'm sure that with an esteemed institution like yours and such enlightened faculty which I've been introduced to. You all have a very, very bright future, and the world is waiting for you to be part of such beautiful institutions, to be trained under such enlightened faculty, and to have born and getting trained at the right era where opportunities at large are waiting for you. It's the need of ours to explore yourself and look beyond corporate sector. There's a lot of opportunity in other sectors as well. Thank you so much.